If enough people repeat something that's fake, does it make it real? New York City has just elected a socialist mayor, and many people believe that this is going to lead to a massive exodus out of New York City into places like Florida. I want to clarify with you from the start of this video that this video is not about politics. This video is about real estate and economics. Are we really going to have a mass exodus of New Yorkers like we did during COVID? Well, I do have the answer for you. The answer can be clearly demonstrated through the analytics of our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is the biggest tool that exists on the internet for people relocating to Florida because of the library of thousands of videos about the state. Nobody has a larger library on YouTube about the state of Florida than my YouTube channel. So my analytics reflect when people are interested in Florida. Sometimes political movements or stories do affect who is interested in Florida. For example, as of recently, there's an increase in people moving to Florida or interested in Florida in Havana, Cuba. That is because access to the internet now is available there. Because of the political situation in the United States, Canadians are now watching our YouTube channel at a rate over 2 times higher than they were a year ago. So we can tell by our analytics what stories are relevant to people and which stories are not. In the case of New Yorkers moving to Florida in November 2025, it doesn't exist. Let's look at the real numbers. In January 2020, New York was the number 2 state watching our videos. As of right now, New York has fallen down to number 4. Back then, the average view duration on our YouTube channel was well over 7 minutes. As of right now, the average view duration from the state of New York is at about 5 minutes and 30 seconds, which is only 7 seconds more per view than the state of Florida. Back when people were moving to Florida from New York on a massive scale, that number was usually around 30 seconds more. If people from New York really were about to move to Florida on a massive scale, we would see higher view durations at around 7 minutes. But the reality is that there's a perfect correlation between Miami and New York City right now on our viewership, which just goes to show that people in New York are watching our channel about the same as everybody else. As you guys know, my wife had a real estate license a while back. My sister's a realtor, and many of my friends and associates here in Florida are realtors. I have a lot of ties, both family and relationship, with people who work in real estate in Florida. And realtors in Florida are not excited about a new wave of New Yorkers coming here. In fact, realtors in Florida are more concerned than they've ever been. The state of Florida continues to push gimmicks to convince more blind people to move to this state, like the promise that soon they're not going to have to pay property taxes, which is not going to happen. During COVID, they told people that Florida was the free state of Florida, and what's free anymore in this state? Insurance is the highest in the nation for vehicles and for homes. Healthcare is among the worst. Law enforcement officers and teachers are among the worst paid in the nation. Property taxes and assessment to properties have become absurd as well. Basically, these people were told that if they came to Florida, they wouldn't be overburdened by the system like they were in New York. And in that same time period, Florida became even more overburdened by the system than anywhere else in the country. People in Florida now have to pay more for auto and home insurance than anybody else in the nation. Property taxes continue to climb. While it hasn't got as bad as other states, it's starting to get there. Even beach parking, which used to be free, is starting to be charged in a lot of places. Take metropolitan areas that had a huge influx of New Yorkers. Fort Myers, St. Petersburg Beach. These areas used to have free beach parking, and today they're charging people. Fort Myers Beach, for example, people are having to pay as much as $20 an hour to park near the beaches. St. Petersburg Beach is planning to install toll plazas to charge people for visiting their beaches. In my case, I live less than 40 minutes from St. Petersburg Beach. In order to get there, I have to pay the Skyway Bridge toll, another toll to get on the island, and once they're there, you have to pay for parking. That is 3 times that you have to pay just to go to these beaches in Florida. So on one hand, politicians in Florida promise people that this is going to be the free state of Florida, but in reality, every time they convince people to move here under the pretext that the state of Florida is going to be a free place, they doubled down with more fees, more tolls, and more expenses and liabilities than anywhere else, to the point where life in Florida is almost now on par or as complicated as places like New York City or California, where you're being charged left and right for breathing practically. During COVID, a lot of people from New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut moved to Florida. And you know what those people did? They moved back. It's not a secret that Florida's a failure, and since they've left, things haven't got better. And don't get me wrong, people are stupid and gullible and easy to deceive, but when a bunch of people move to another state and then instantly move back because they can't find jobs and they got bled out of the resources, that doesn't really sit well with people in New York. And I think maybe if people are going to leave New York City, they're certainly not going to go to Florida. They might go to North Carolina or Texas or other states that offer better opportunities, but it certainly isn't going to be Florida. Despite the analytics and the true numbers based around this issue, you're already seeing the Volusia County Sheriff say that he's welcoming New Yorkers who want to move to Florida and want to settle down in Volusia County. So let me ask you this. Why would somebody go from New York City to Volusia County, Florida, a county that has an overdose death rate that's about 5 times higher than New York City? Some of these neighborhoods in Volusia County have communities that are for registered offenders. It's entire neighborhoods where everybody that lives there is a registered offender. People are not going to leave their jobs, their life, their community, and their incomes in New York City to go move to a miserable and starving county in Florida full of homelessness, crime, and addiction. Recently, on a group of Puerto Ricans on Facebook, I saw a survey that somebody did where they said, if you're leaving Puerto Rico right now, would you move to Florida or Texas? And 95% of people said Texas, not Florida. And these are Puerto Ricans. You got to remember that after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, Puerto Ricans became the largest Hispanic group in Florida, surpassing Cubans, getting into the millions of population. Many of these Puerto Ricans have now left to states like Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and Texas looking for better economical opportunities. Central Florida became a hub for Puerto Ricans fleeing after Hurricane Maria, and now many of those Puerto Ricans are going to other states. In that survey, in the comment section, people noted that the reason Texas is better is that it's more affordable, there's better jobs and opportunities, and the cost of living in Florida is now on par with places like New York and California, but the incomes are Alabama or Mississippi. It's no longer a secret that the state of Florida is a failed state, where promises are made, gimmicks are pushed, but the real numbers never reflect the misery that people who end up here are facing. I don't know if people are going to leave New York City or not because of this new mayor, but I can assure you that Florida is no longer an option for people leaving New York City. Places like Texas and North Carolina offer better opportunities. And of course, the snowbird and tourist season is right around the corner, and we are going to have to start seeing New York and New Jersey license plates everywhere in Florida, but they're not moving here. They're coming here because of the cold weather up north. Talking about cold weather, the reality of who's actually moving to Florida right now, Ohio and upstate New York are leading the pack. So they're leaving these places for different reasons. For example, people in Ohio are tired of the state's mediocre atmosphere, the blandness of the state. They want to live somewhere more fun and exciting, and of course the cold weather. In the case in upstate New York, places like Syracuse, Albany, and Buffalo, these are actually the parts of New York where people are leaving. But I can assure you, it's not because of politics, it is because of the harsh weather. I guess the last few winters up there have been brutal. At times, there's been snow and ice on the ground for over 46 days at a time, and people are just sick of living in that type of environment. So most of the interest in people from New York coming to Florida is from the upstate part because of weather reasons, not from New York City because of politics. Now, I do live in Florida. However, New York City is the #1 city in the United States that watches my videos. My YouTube channel gets more views there in New York City than it does in Miami, Orlando, or Tampa. New York City is the #1 city that watches my channel. My life revolves around understanding the analytics of my YouTube channel to know to who I have to cater my content. And in the case of recently, in the year 2025, There is no interest in New York City because of this mayoral election. What there is interest in Florida right now is from people in other places that are following politics. So if you're one of these people that's been blindly repeating that people from New York City are going to start to move to Florida because of the new mayor there, reconsider how accurate that statement is, because it doesn't line up with the truth. And before I finish today's video, I want to leave one last personal piece of advice to my audience. The only reason you should leave or move because of political reasons is if you are being oppressed or in prison. For example, in the case of my family, my father did 5 years in prison in Cuba as a political prisoner. We didn't come to the United States for a better future or for economical benefits. We were brought here by the United Nations because of political persecution, my entire family. It's become really popular for people in the United States to move because they don't like the state or the city politics. You're a bunch of crybabies, and we left Cuba after being in prison for years and years and years. We tried to stay because what matters most is family. For example, I personally dislike what's happening in Florida right now, but all my family lives in Florida. My family is more important than politics to me. That's why, despite the fact I don't like the state of Florida, I don't like the opportunities that exist here in Florida, I'm here in Florida because my family is more important. If you move to the state of Florida because of a temporary problem, you're going to regret it. During COVID, people made lifelong decisions based off of a temporary problem. In the case of New Yorkers, they abandoned their homes, they abandoned their businesses, they abandoned their families to come to Florida because they turned a temporary problem, COVID, into a lifelong mistake, moving to Florida, leaving everything behind. Do not turn a temporary problem into a lifelong decision. That's what people did during COVID, and a lot of them regretted it and had to move back.